Yeah, welcome everyone. Nice to be here. My talk is on social consequences of artificial intelligence. It's a wide range, as you can think, and I was, I don't know, I wasn't so sure about which they are and which to include, because, as you can imagine, there are a lot. I started from this little conception because it brings us back to the 50s, and obviously it's AI generated, and it brings us to the question, where do we want to be? You look, those are those imaginations of the time, what machines would do at some time, probably. They are included in this AI generated image, and you see it's divided because the debate is also very divided and very polarized. Either we will end up in a horror scenario where everything goes wrong, or in a world where everything is a utopia. I try to give some hints to what might happen at both parts, so to say, but it's hard to imagine how this evolves into some other not drastic way, and I try to include those non-drastic scenarios also. So first of all, I'm not a machine learning specialist. I'm a social scientist, and I don't. So please don't stress me with when you ask about models. I'm not so sure I've understood them. But first of all, human societies, and also obviously machine learning models are quite complex. We don't understand most of the parts of them not, and so it's hard to guess about the future and tell about what will happen in 20 years or so. Obviously we can't really, but what we can do is try to infer somehow. So first of all, let's start with getting a little insight what machine learning is about. Probably many of you have either used or heard about neural networks. If you haven't, that's fine. It's just the conception is that you want to get some kind of output, give some kind of input, and now you train those models by giving a lot of input and adjusting those connections over here. These are called layers, in between hidden layers. And those edges connecting them, or weights, have weights, so you can give on every edge, so to say, a number, tell how strong, for example, on should influence on over here. That's what is done with this kind of machine learning models that are called neural networks. It's done by backpropagation, so you first of all put the data in, then you adjust the weights randomly, or in this case I think not randomly, but by using a function to make the guess more better for this specific case of data, and that's what's done over and over again. Thing is, those advanced models did this with a lot of data, as you can imagine. Basically, almost all texts humankind has generated and are freely available, and there is more and more need for data, putting all those data in, and afterwards those models turned into something really fascinating in my perception. This process is called building a foundation model. Afterwards you got a specified neural network with actual numbers in there. For every edge you see there, or every line you see there, there is a number included. That's called the parameters of such a model. And afterwards you can use it. But first of all, how are these large language models done? They are trained on basically texts of humans, and they use a context window, so they step through a certain number of words, and afterwards they try to predict the next word. In a text, obviously there's a right answer. There is a real word in there, the next word that isn't included in the context window, and they try to guess it as good as possible. That has been done for basically the whole internet and a lot of other texts, and you end up with a very complex model with millions of parameters, numbers in these lines, and that's called a foundation model. Afterwards, you use this foundation model and do some kind of supervised learning, it's called. You give hints to the model, which is a good and not a good answer. What should be selected, what should not be selected. So you adjust those models once again based on human rating, for example. There were a vast number of click workers doing those stuff over the internet that were participating in this. By the way, they didn't earn a lot, and they didn't have necessarily very good working conditions. That's part of the story. But afterwards you get very complex models that can do a lot. And thing is, those models developed capacities that none of those researchers, some did maybe, but most of the researchers didn't expect those capacities. So we can talk of, or researchers talk of emerging features, something that comes up from those texts that we didn't infer from the part, like the patterns that is represented in this text. For example, the structure of language, but even more, it's also the knowledge that is in this text that comes sucked into this weight, so to say, into this hyperparameters, and that's basically what happened over here. So we get like in human language, you have an incomplete but condensed mapping of reality experienced by humans sucked into the side of this model, so to say. I can show you an example. I had a video. I can't show it here for copyright reasons, but for how it's called, for one of the most advanced video generative models. There is little puppies, dogs jumping around, and they follow. They look quite real. They look good. So imagine if you want to produce a real good-looking video. Obviously, those models that generate a video must have some knowledge about physics, something about mechanical laws, how they jump, how they behave, how muscles form those parts of the body, and things like that. And that's by just training. It was a good video or not good video. It becomes sucked into this model, and that's an emergent phenomenon. Afterwards, it understands about physics, for example. That's what happened also, obviously, with large language models and text and chatbots. And so yeah, for example, you can say there are sediments of personalities, values, beliefs, and biases of countless human authors of these texts sucked inside the model. So it's basically human psychology, neurology, and a lot of other things that show up in those models and come to us when we use them, so to say. So thing is, I wanted to present a good overview of. We didn't have the time. There was a harsh increase in capacities the last year. Here's just the early history. I wanted to complete the history of the last 3 years, but didn't have the time to look it all up. Thing is, in the last 5 years, there was a vast development of such emergent capacities, what those models can do based on those training process, what emerged over there. They can do mathematics while they weren't trained in. They can do a lot of other things, and they, as you all know, they have quite astonishing capacities. That's what is the early history, and I think most people didn't think that we will be at that point in history 10 years ago. I didn't, and probably you. I don't know. I wouldn't say many people think that it would go like this. Okay, my part as a researcher, a social scientist, is, by the way, it's not research here, it's just an essay also to say. I didn't have a lot of time to research on this. So what I wanted to ask is what happens when such models occur, and what will happen to society. First of all, those models...
Stay close to the mic, sorry.
I'm so sorry. So basically those models have inputs, like economic inputs. It's data that goes inside, natural resources and energy. That's also, there's a hardware production capacity that's needed, and skilled labor. And what we saw the last years is the more and more of those resources those researchers included into the models, the better and better those models became in terms of complexity. 5 years ago, they could write childish texts like children, and nowadays they are, I think, near to PhD level at some points. They can give you exam class solutions, and even those that haven't been generated, and not even those they have been directly trained on, but they have some kind of capacity to solve those anyhow, given they haven't had the specific task in their training data. So that goes inside, and it increases the efficiency of these machine learning models. We don't know how far this will go. Nobody knows, I think. Maybe you know, I don't know. But there are possible blocking factors, like it could be that there are mathematical laws. So at some point of time, those models won't perform that good, like the last 5 years. for example, like curse of dimensionality or other mechanisms that might be behind. I'm not an expert in this, but there could be a lot of things that result in a decrease in a ceiling, that there is no advancement that goes as far as by now. But if we extrapolate what would happen if it would go the way like it did in the last 5 years, that's a quite interesting, astonishing, and also, in my perception, a bit frightening perspective, so to say. But let's see. Another thing, in my perception, that's relevant is the speed of application by organizations. That's, so to say, the adoption of society. How long does it take if there is a really good model that it is applied? Will it take years? Will it take 5 years? Will it take 10 years? We don't know. Given there's some new algorithm that can do some specific task, like being a doctor or a physicist or whatever, then how long will it take? It will be used as in application. That we don't know. That's another thing that drastically shapes how we should think about the future. And then if it's applied, there are a lot of consequences. You can see I try to sum up some of them. You see that there's a negativity bias in my talk. I have more negative aspects in here than the positive. Spare me that, because we all talk about the positive, we see the positive things. I somehow want also point direct to the negative ones, but what happens, it's not shown. As a social scientist, I also want to show you that beyond even these models wouldn't function at all, even there wouldn't be a benefit from machine learning, that has nonetheless drastic effects on society. Because independent of whatever happens over here, there is something that we call Hawthorne effect in society, in sociology. When people think of that a reality exists, they adjust their behavior. Afterwards, the world is a different one. So this has already happened. There is a lot of ongoing. I'll show you what has happened over there. But independent of the performance or what machine learning will become, there is a Hawthorne effect that we have to take into account also. So there are a lot of unknowns over here. The capacity of future models, the limiting of resources. I didn't tell, like what will happen if, for example, we run out of rare materials, or what will happen if the energy can't be applied as fast as it would be needed to follow this growth path, or something like that. So there are obviously limiting resources, and also there are outcome unknowns, like how will the society react, social cultural reactions of society members. If you all agree after this talk or not to not use machine learning anymore, the demand cuts somehow a bit. If the whole world would do so, then the demand would cut totally, so to say. So it would also be no advancement in machine learning just by our behavior, so to say. By the way, which resources get into those machine learning companies, or which they get, depends also on expectations, in this time from investors in the stock market. They decide how much they fund them and how much those companies will get, and that is directly proportional to what kind of resources they can buy with that. For example, they can buy more data sources, they can buy natural resources, and so on. So that's the easy model, and now to some things that might follow from it, or even some recent developments of the last years. So first unknown is the innovative potential. We don't know how LLMs in 5 years will be. Some claim that LLMs are just shortcutting problems. They are not solving any real problem. It's just based on human knowledge that's done already in the data, and they cannot be creative, not really. That's a specific view. I wouldn't share it, but that could be that, for example, we will never have a big impact on scientific growth, for example, through machine learning, because they can only reproduce what's already there. Doesn't look like for me right now, but it could be that some people think like that. Then My perspective would be more what is creativity, but not a recombination of prior knowledge, taking into account the previous patterns, or so to say. So, in my perception, what creativity means, it's very near to that what machine learning algorithms are performing over there. So, if you get a text or a poem that's never been written, then it's in this way creative that it's a new poem and it follows some logic, some structures that we want from it, and maybe it could also drop out. We could also have an emotional feeling when reading those. So I think we have a lot of examples of something like a form of creativity. So I wouldn't say that will happen, but it could. Then we could, in principle, find out something like that experimentally. We could, for example, run a model and give it the data, and only the data of the 20th century, and look if Einstein occurs, and if he afterwards develops the theory of relativity. Might be. But I think before we can run in such experiments, we will see drastic shapes in reality and other proofs of. But we could, in principle, we could prove if this creativity exists or not. So that's there's another term I want to introduce. It's artificial general intelligence. That's an algorithm that performs at least as good as humans or better. Sounds strange to some, maybe. But thing is, many people, not many, but a lot of people, I don't know how to wait, but a lot of people in AI say they are not far from this. I will show you citations on this. Let's say it would be like this: an algorithm that performs at least as good as humans or better, and not only in a domain-specific knowledge, like being competent at playing music, competent at being trained on doing statistics or whatever, but able to learn, perform all kinds of tasks. That would be something like a human that can, and if it's on the level of humans, we could say it could somehow replace humans. It could be used to do work from humans, for example, the same way and as good as humans. The protagonists of AI say, if you reach that level, likely we will end up very, very fast at a different point in time where we have a lot of superhuman AGIs. Why is that? Because you can think of humans have a specific processing speed, they have a specific memory capacity, and a lot of other things, and you can't copy over different kind of humans and make a lot of them, but you can do the same for, I jump a bit forward, you can do exactly that for general, if there exists something like general intelligence, you can copy and you can reproduce it 1,000 times, so to say. Well, maybe I dropped that argument a bit later, give me, sorry. Okay, so, okay. There is a report about RAND. I don't know if you know about RAND. It's an American organization that's linked somehow to the army, also somehow to the development of society. It's a bit of a mixture, and it has a specific viewing of the world. Like, for example, the Bertelsmann Stiftung in Germany has a specific view. And one report of him, it's called a guy, he's Mesa. Mr. Mesa, he made 3 scenarios, and I just take them because I think they are plausible somehow to just categorize. I'm not totally with his analysis, but the scenarios is like this. First would be a fast advancement into AGI. Second scenario would be that there are such ceiling effects that won't develop until a specific point, and then it's over, something like that, and it can't be used for specific tasks. And the third would be it's a slow process going there, let's say 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. That could be, or maybe 1,000 years, we don't know, that it evolves something, those models somehow evolve into AGI, could be. For the fast advancement to super AGI, which we, as I said, some are fearing. For example, Jeffrey Hinton is an example of guys fearing those fast and very fast process. He's a Nobel laureate. He developed those neural networks, and he says most of the AI experts believe that sometime in the next 5 to 20 years we will make AIs that are smarter than humans. That's his guess. But he's not the only one in this business. A lot of people are saying similar things. I show you citations in the upcoming talk. So the thing is, what would happen? First of all, independent of what those models turn out, there is already a massive reallocation. Increased reduction and use of input resources for AI. These are channeled into, you can think about buying computers. Nowadays you have to pay more for your memory. Why is that? Because a lot of production capacities are sucked into this AI business, and they buy all they can get in terms of production capacities because they need them really hard. The big tech four largest companies are preparing to pour a combined 560 billion or more into AI infrastructure in 2026. In comparison, the whole world GDP is about 126 trillion. A lot more, but it's a considerable part that's only going into those big four big tech companies. Or take, for example, the collecting of money done by Anthropic this year. From 30 billion to 60 million, they doubled their firm value by giving, I guess, stocks, I don't know. And now they have 60 billion to, for example, invest them in such resources. This obviously has consequences. One that is discussed often is the energy use. Also very independent of the outcome. We don't know how machine learning will develop, but the energy use, it's anyhow realized. Like, for example, the share of AI hardware in energy consumption of data centers is expected to shift from 13% in 2023 to 47% in 2030 by a report Environment Impacts of Artificial Intelligence. It's the Öko-Institute in Germany, I guess. Estimated energy demand for AI data centers is expected to increase by 11 times in this time. So you can say now data centers are used for other things, and then they are labeled as AI data centers, so it might be a bit different, but nonetheless it's a vast increase of power and used resources over there, and that's already happened and happening right now. Same for rare earths and for the chip production, for example. There's a large amount of resource extraction that has to happen to realize this, and it's done right now, so to say. Outlook study by the International Energy Agency estimates global energy consumption by data centers in 2023 at 361 terawatt hours, increased to at least 69, and at most 1,264 terawatt hours. I'm not an expert in energy, but just to see the shapes, so it's doubling somehow or even more. That's what's happening over here. One could see major big tech companies are allowed, what I would say big tech companies are allowed to gamble on the bet that AGIs will fix problems on the climate crisis created on the way over there. So we don't know how this bet is. They could be right, and we could afterwards have, for example, ways of solving the climate crisis. That might be a realistic scenario anyhow, but we don't know. We don't know, and it's a bet, and we allow it, so to say, as a society or economy results in doing so, and we don't regulate economy over here. Then energy use. Another side thing is multiple competitive AI training infrastructures and companies are monopolizing the models, and that leads to extreme inefficiencies because not one model is trained, but a lot. We can say that that's part of science, that we have to do a lot of training, but think of all those structures are separate from each other. They all have to build their own structures, and so even if we agree on that it's a good idea to train machine learning models, I wouldn't say it's necessarily very efficient that every company that wants to does so. So there are a lot of companies, not a lot of, but more than 5 that try to generate such models, and they use a vast number of capacities. So it was, if you, as a humankind, could agree on that, it's not a good idea. It would be nicer to do it, for example, together. But that's another thing. What else does happen or has already happened? We have a possibly a very large increase in accessibility of quality informations. I would say so that machine learning algorithms right now and chatbots right now have a lot of potential in terms of giving information to people, especially for those that are not very well trained in searching information, and they can get quite good answers to complex problems. That's something that's already somehow happened and will continue to happen, I guess. There is high quality information available, and even given they have not access to databases and stuff like that. That could also result in benefits in other parts, like education, for example. There are education scientists discussing how those models could be included in learning at school, for example. For example, a teacher would have time for every child whole day and could directly give the answers that every child has at the moment. I wouldn't say that machine learning models are a replacement of teachers, but at large parts, it could be that education could be much more efficient if students can ask, hey, I didn't understand, and can you explain it? Can you explain it to me? And an algorithm could give the answer. So that might be also somehow beneficial. This comes also with a side effect of people thinking about students that are not thinking that thorough anymore. If you know you can get the answer anytime in a second, why should you think? It's much more easier than thinking 5 minutes, entering a prompt in 20 seconds, and you get the answer. That somehow changes also our way of learning, and maybe also the way of which capacities we as humans have. But an ongoing debate in research. Then, obviously, there's a lot of discussion for schools, universities, like can we have, our assessment system is exploding. We can't give our assignments to our students because the machine learning models are doing them better than the students. It's like that right now. It's like you can use a chatbot and get a good thesis or whatever that might be better than a student that has written. And maybe it's the best strategy to tell the machine learning algorithms simulate a not so good student to make it not so obvious, but it's a problem. I'm not a fan of kind of meritocratic norms like the best. Those who are the brightest should get the best resources. Not my cup of tea. I don't like it. But that's the basis of our society, as far as I perceive it. And it makes a lot of problem if this systems doesn't work anymore. If you can't do those kind of tests, and people thinking what replacements they should use, and how learning and assignments should given to students. So that's an open question also. Then we have, on the downside, a boost and dissemination of a vast number of incorrect information. For example, there was a contest analysis conducted by the New York Times that found that Google's AI overview gives 9 of 10 times incorrect answers. No, the other way around, I guess. Only 9 times of 10 times correct answers. It's not like that. But imagine every 10th answer is incorrect. That would be hard. I don't think it's like that. I somehow would challenge the thing. But there obviously are a lot, and it's going to the millions of unjustified claims that are somehow plausibilized by very good writing and source that seems reasonable and trustworthy, and those sources are linked over there. So it's a mass campaign of misinformation, so to say, that's implicitly we are done. I wouldn't say it must not necessarily be bad. It could be also, nonetheless, it could be more beneficial because the other answers are so good. But I at least want to raise a concern over here. It's not there's a problem. Then another thing, chatbot, Claude, Gemini, and other chatbots make up every third answer. That's another study. This is done by the European Medienaufsicht. I don't know. I'm also not so sure if it's a very good study, but yeah, you see, there is a problem. Then there is a massive increase of automatic generated web content. The internet is becoming a bulk or a trash can or whatever. There's a lot of stuff that is not valid, that's not even created by humans, and it's done for a purpose. For example, for page rank optimization, or for other things, or for manipulation of people, for opinion control. I will tell in a minute, but that's happening already. Another thing in science, here it's for the Lancet, a medical journal. We have 2003, we had a situation that 2,828 papers, one of every 2,828 papers, there was a citation that didn't exist in there. But the study here confirms that it just dropped to 2026 from 1 to 277. So every 277th article in this medical journal doesn't exist. You see, so you see, the scientific system gets problem if automatic generated content ends up in peer-reviewed journals. But another problem. Let's talk about opinion manipulation and nudging. As you know, there's an ongoing fight for our heads and our opinions. We left a lot of communication traces around the net, human psychology, neurology, that can be used to control humans, to convince them, to persuade us to do something or come to a specific conclusion. By the way, when I learned that Elon Musk will buy Twitter, I was very upset and concerned. Mainly for this reason, because it's containing a lot of information about human psychology, and it also contains the information how to persuade people. So it will be used and is used to somehow nudge us in one or other direction, to let us come to a specific conclusion. And there is also evidence that agencies around the world are using such techniques, trying to convince us about certain things, and they use, I guess, state-of-the-art psychology to do so. And you can extract them from human pattern data if you want and if you have the data. So there's an increased likelihood of manipulating us all, and when models get stronger, this problem might increase. What if a persuasive message is tailored individually, given just to convince me that something is right or wrong? And if it adjusts to my specifics, like what would catch me, what would bring me believing that, what is credible for me, then we are in this scenario, and I think we are already in this. Here's another example from the media here. Here's Larissa Wagner. She's a right-wing activist, and she's talking a lot of shit on Instagram, as you can see. It's like hatred speech, and thing is, she doesn't exist. She's just a chatbot. She posts those stuff all over and over. She has a lot of followers. Many people follow her and even cite her and retweet those messages. And thing is, she obviously doesn't exist. And the picture is chatbot generated, but there are a lot of automated or semi-automated chatbots around, but they're becoming more and more automated. They're becoming more and more agentic, so to say. Then probably there will be a change in human relations. We already saw it. That's also part media covered a lot. The human tendency towards anthropomorphism, even given we don't have thinking, sentient, machine learning algorithms, but just computers processing things. People think and believe that they are in some kind of talk, in some kind of relation. There's a lot of people that develop relations to current chat models and include it into their lives. Changes drastically might change social relations drastically, and I'm not an expert in this, but just want to show and remind you of this also. Then when it comes that there's another bad thing that might happen, semi-autonomous warfare. The Guardian reported, for example, that's contested. I'm not sure if it's true or not, so we don't know really, because Israeli government defense forces rejected that claim, but there was a whistleblower who told that there was a semi-automatic target selection when, for example, doing warfare on specific combatants. That's one thing, but beyond this specific case, we know that there are a lot. Oh no, now my slides are a bit mixed. There's a lot of inclusion of machine learning into all kinds of warfare. Autonomous weapons, obviously, but also strategic programs like analysis software and stuff like that. That's already used a lot. and it shapes the way and increases the speed the way wars can be run. Another thing, digital vulnerabilities. In April 7th, there was a publication of Claude Mythos, a new large frontier model that is the best they have right now, or at least released to the public, and it was used to do cyber attacks or more specific find exploits. It was containerized. Claude was prompted to find weaknesses, also given source code of some, but also software that there wasn't a source code, and it was prompted to attack those, find attack vectors and find zero-day exploits. And the thing is, it found very fast a lot of them, so many that they had to conceal them, and they didn't release to the public, obviously, but they start now to give day by day to some specific software firms those fixes to those concealing they tell about those weaknesses, and afterwards they can fix them and get a bit time to close those vulnerabilities. So this is a drastically increasing cyber attacks that might happen over here. Possibly, this could be outweighed by hardening the code base, like Anthropic is doing it right now. They want to show others that the weaknesses and that they are closed. But we also know that there are a lot of agencies around, maybe also organized crime, that try to find such zero-day exploits, and they will use it, I guess, if they get access to such models, or somehow agency obviously have them, they will use them, and that will necessarily lead to, in my perception, more unstable internet. That's another thing. Here, for example, just a report, the Chinese spies last year, the year before, Claude Myth, already used Claude as part of the attack. This wasn't an advanced one, but it was used. This case by Chinese hackers. It was concealed by Anthropic also. That's all things to happen, and now I gave you a lot of downsides. Now we come to the nice part. We get automation for all of us, because you see the left part over here, a lot of products and robots that produce them. For the first time, there is the high potential that a stream of goods without labor might become true. We could live in a utopian world where we don't have to work a lot, and it might be that if AGIs are developed this way, it could be a realistic scenario. Not now, not maybe in 5 years, but maybe in 10 years, maybe in 20 years, or whenever. Because if everything can be automated, then probably nobody has to work. Let's see why that's problematic or might not work. There are two big unknowns: the percentage of human labor replaceable and the transformation speed. And also there are probably downsides from such a development, and I want to show you them. So first of all, machine learning companies are prioritizing right now software coding. Why is that? Because in doing so, they can use AI or machine learning algorithms to code and participate in improving machine learning models, for in this case, large language models. So it's a strategic decision to prioritize for at least for Anthropic, it's like that they can use their own software and their own development for writing and improving the code. Here, for example, just an overview how far it's reaching already. By end of the 2024, an estimated of 29% of Python functions were produced with substantial AI support. So there's a lot of, obviously they are not totally written at that time, but a lot of software code is already generated by machine learning. And that's in principle a great development. It's in principle good, because we could also say people can say, I want a software XY, and a machine learning algorithm produces it, and people have a lot of benefits from it. It's great, why not? It's not a good news for all the programmers in here, not for me, also as a social scientist, I will tell in a minute, but in principle it could be a good thing. Downside, Atlassian announced that dropping 10% of the total workforce is related to the AI developments. That might be a myth. It could be that it's just a myth to... Thanks. It might be that's only a myth to tell people that they wanted to get rid of those employees anyhow, and they now use AI as a myth, but we don't know. Anyhow, but what we know is that there is a lot of potential in software coding, and there is that some parts of software coding can be replaced right now. The adoption is rapid, and the boost of productivity that comes over here. For example, there was a study that there were a lot of code run contributions by AI, and the thing is, it was typically for senior level developers that were not replaced. Like there was a study how many younger persons are specific companies employing, and they found that in the recent years there is a substantial decline in employment for early career workers. Why is that? Because nowadays coding like Claude also can replace some parts that early career workers probably would do. And also there's another study that found that especially senior level developers benefit a lot. They produce a lot more code more efficiently when using such coding tools. So it's happening right now. There's a lot of ongoing change. Another study over here, those experience 16% relative employment declines, controlling for firm-level shocks, while employment for experienced workers remains stable. It's also the early career workers over here. Same study, I think. Let me drop quite fast. Let's say we are in this AGI scenario. What will happen? Probably all software coding will be done by and can be replaced. If it would be like that, then because you see, no one AGI can learn everything. They can easily learn all the software capacities even senior researchers have, and then they would be a replacement for them. And thing is, I skip a lot. There is a lot problematic with AIs, with AI models in terms of labor market effects. If it's like that, there's parallel processing, there's transferability. You can easily have not only one of such agent, but you have easily a society of geniuses in a data center, like some of the protagonists over there call it. And that would mean, in effect, that you have experts for almost everything in a data center. You form teams of them. They do all those steps that would be done in research, that would be done in software development and all other information work, and they are better and faster and quicker. It would be an increase in growth. It would be a fast improvement of innovation, and so on. Same for science over here. I just give a hint to a paper of a colleague. He's done something like a paper factory. He just gave a lot of models prompts like search for literature, take this data set, analyze it, do like more specific obviously, and a lot of prompts. Afterwards he came up with ready papers that obviously were not good right now. That's not a point. They are not better than researchers at a point in time, but they were actual scientific papers that did this work. Not almost correct. There were a lot of mistakes, but it was possible to do so. It was hard for him, he told, to get a society of LLMs work together. That's a task that's not so easy right now, and I guess also that manager position could also be done at a specific point in time by an LLM, but that's what's happening also. Now, let's see where this goes. We don't know, but at the worst case, it comes very fast. It's at almost every branch of society, and there is capitalism around that results in those firms that can't compete with the more efficient firms will not make a market. That will result in a concurrent situation, like or in the situation where it's adapted very fast, I fear, and that might result in drastic shocks. Think of nobody is needed anymore, like in a year or so, in a time period of short, condensed time. every task can be done better by machines and they are applied. Then it depends on the time, how long this takes into the society. But at that point in time, I think we get a real problem, demand crisis, because nobody is paid anymore, many people losing jobs. That might happen. I think there are ways around in dealing with that if it would really happen like that. But I think many people are not thinking that it could really happen. I think it can really happen. There are a lot of consequences what might happen. You think of the 19th century machine stürmer, swing riots. There would be a lot of conflict, a lot of ongoing fights, for distribution of the resources. That would be a real problem in my perception. I skipped surveillance and trackability. You know all about that and how we know that since 2010, the leaks of agencies, in this time those cooperating with the US, they used every technique they had, and they already used machine learning at the time, and they used it to surveil every citizen of the world. It's done right now also, I guess. There is no reason to believe why it shouldn't be like that. So I guess there is a lot of increase in surveillance and in the efficiency of surveillance in my perception. There was this debate, you probably just a hint, look up Anthropic versus Pentagon. By beginning of the year, there was a fight between Amadeo there was a fight of I don't get the name, the head of Anthropic with the Pentagon, and he told, first thing, we have a contract with you agencies, you can use our software, but not for this purpose you want from us now, because our algorithm is a plane that is not safe to fly, so to say. That's what was his wording. So he opposed giving his software to the Pentagon, and this resulted in a massive Einschüchterungskampagne, I don't know the word, can someone help me? Intimidation campaign against Anthropic. They were forced by 100 billion to lose their contract. They were forced of nationalization, that they would be verstaatlicht. That was happening at the time. So there is a lot of interest in machine learning in agencies and also in warfare, as I told you. That's another inherent risk. Now let's come to the more. Okay, so Tai, we are at the end, right? Okay, so then I can't get with all the other stuff, but nice to have you here, and we can skip directly into the talk. I will upload my slides. You can have a look into if you want to interested in the part to come, and now it's on you to choose what you want to discuss. I have a question prepared. Yes, please.
Could you be so kind and give us a very short summarize?
Thank you.
I'm confused a little bit. Sorry.
Okay.
My English is so bad.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question was if I could give a short summarization of my whole talk in a short, condensed way. That's hard, and it's nice that you want to try.
The conclusion, not the start.
Yeah. The conclusion. Okay. The conclusion. Yeah, that's nice. Thank you. The conclusion would be, I'm not a total opponent of machine learning, and I'm really astonished by it. But I fear that we have to. First lesson I haven't shown, we have to regulate massively, we have to think of welfare states, redistribution programs and stuff like that, but we also have to take safety measures that aren't taken right now. Right now in the world, this is a Wild West scenario, and it's really, really dangerous. That's my perception. Even there's a prisoner dilemma, like, for example, the first to become Jeffrey Hinton, for example, also said the first block to become an artificial and very advanced AGI will lead the world, so to say. They will get control of the world, and so there's, even given it's not existent already, a block confrontation right now, like in the atomic age, like people are in a prisoner dilemma. If the other side gets this power, the superpower, then they have probably to attack. That's what he warns of. There are a lot of other dangers that I agree with him, and I think he's right about that, and we have to think about what to do. Yeah.
I think let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you.